here, man. This guy is becoming a regular on the show. So we have Joe Bliss back in the house. What's up, Joe?
What's going on, Todd?
And it's always good to see you. So welcome.
Always good. Always good, man. I'm
Always
glad to be here.
Your 20th show, seems like.
I don't know. I just got full of useless information.
It's fantastic. Well, again, welcome. Hey, this is the official EFF podcast, and we want to thank our sponsors, as always, 123go.io and Tabby Entertainment. On today's show, we're going to break down something that Joe is considered an expert, at least in my eyes, is an expert, the individual defensive players, the IDPs. So we'll do all of that in about 2 minutes, so hang tight. So Joe, you've had a league for quite a few years that I've been playing with, and I appreciate the invite back in a while ago. But your league is an IDP league.
Yeah,
so,
we ran IDP.
Sorry.
We ran IDP with a team defense in the same league, and then recently, in the last couple of years, we dropped the team defense and just run an IDP.
Okay. So what's been your experiences? How long have you been playing IDP leagues? I've been playing a few years prior to joining your league, but how about yourself?
This league has been doing IDP for probably 12, 13 years.
Wow.
It started off small, just maybe a couple linebackers and a couple DBs, and then it's got to the point, I think we're up to 7 total defensive players, and there's no max on who or what you have. You can have all linemen or linebackers or DBs or whatever it is.
It's an interesting concept with that. I played in a few before that you could have one-on-one. So
right,
having unlimited is way different. So why did you decide to pick do IDPs as opposed to team defense?
Looking at scoring wise, I'd say most people are chasing touchdowns. I prefer the defensive side of the ball. I like sacks. I like turnovers. I like to see defensive touchdowns. So we started off very slow. Like I said, we put a couple in there in 1 year to see how it was. And then we had to adjust the scoring a little bit. But we mirror the scoring as if it was an offensive player. So saying that, if you get a sack, that's the same as getting a touchdown, basically, on the offensive side.
Okay. Interesting. So a little bit different than what other IDP leagues may or may not be. So
yeah, I play in one other league where it's IDP and it's just one spot, and he scores it. I think it's 2.5 points for a sack, and a tackle is 1 point, and an assisted tackle is a 0.5 point. To where if you look at my scoring, a sack is 6 points, a tackle or an assist is 1 point automatically, regardless if it's a full tackle on their own or not.
Okay. So let's chat a little bit about why you and I, who've been playing IDPs for a long time, but who actually are executives on the EFF, are chatting about a format that's not even our format. So let's get into this a little bit. As you may know, out here in the EFF, we're pivoting a little bit to not just focusing on our two brands, the Blitz and the Exchange Leagues, but now we're going to have regular discussions, whether it's a podcast or a blog somewhere on our website or the app, or whatever it may be, of all of the other major formats, because we want to become your fantasy football, spot to come to, right? So we actually are breaking down the IDPs this week, and we will, get into other formats, maybe with Joe or other people out there who want to chat about their certain style or format. So we are breaking down the IDPs today, and we're going to talk a little bit about where, I guess the biggest question I have, Joe, and I ask you, because I kind of know where I tend to do it, but give me your thoughts on where you might draft a top tier IDP player versus in the rounds versus what you might find a mid-tier or what offensive player?
Obviously, it's going to base off of what the scoring is in that league.
Okay.
If you go on my league, we've seen defensive players go as early as the 4th or 5th round. If you play in the other league that I play in, it's usually towards the end of the draft where you start seeing them. When you pick your kickers and all that is when you start seeing those fly off. Based on the scoring, I personally I want the best of the best. So, or usually between the 3rd and 6th round, I'm choosing the best linebacker that's out there and maybe the best defensive end that's out there. And once that first player goes on the defensive side of the ball, you kind of start seeing a tier
It does
to
happen.
where others are like, oh crap, I forgot about that side of the ball. And they start drafting as early as I do. And I do believe last year, you or my brother, one of them, chose way before I did, and
I think
that
I
was
did.
like,
I
that
did.
was like, oh gosh, I have to start on that side of the ball. So, it's just your preference. There are certain players I want, um, both on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball, and if I don't get them, I mean, I'm known to try and get them through a trade later in the league because I really want that guy on the defensive side of the ball. So I tend to probably draft back to back when I draft my first defensive player between rounds 4 and 6. I probably get a D end and a linebacker, and then I'll see how the rest of the draft goes. If no one else is going to go into it, I'm going to go grab that second best linebacker right away, because that could get me possibly on an average of 12 to 13 points
Right.
a game.
So you're looking at a starting linebacker again in 12, 13. In fact, I have the stats right here from last year. The top 5 linebackers in your league, the top 5 average 12.1 points per game. So that's not too far off what you're going to find on a second tier player in offense. So you're looking at, well, do I pick a starting linebacker, or do I pick my 3rd running back, or do I pick my 3rd receiver? Those kind of things. Is that kind of what you're thinking there?
Well, this league is very different. It's very high scoring. And you do keep one player in that aspect. So did you keep a QB, and keep in mind, this is a 2 QB league. So usually the first round, you got QBs flying off the board. I may wait later in the rounds to get my QBs, and that might bite me in the butt, or it might work out great for me. It all depends. But like I said before, there are certain players that I want on the defensive side of the ball, and I know I got to go get them early.
Okay. So we'll get into a little bit later on some of our predictions for what we feel the top 5 for all 3 of those defensive positions are coming up. But okay, so when you look at a defense, do you look at, or a player, tackles versus sacks versus interceptions? Do you lean towards the tackles? You mentioned linebackers a lot because they kind of get a little bit of both. They get some picks, they get some tackles, they get some sacks. So what's the strategy of the 3 positions, D-line, linebacker, and DB? Where do you tend to have your priorities? And then and I understand, we all understand how draft changes, and drafts can change things quickly. So you have to be kind of fluid with what you're thinking about here. So when you go into your strategy, you mentioned again, maybe 3rd, maybe 4th through 6th rounds, you're going to start looking at those DBs, and you mentioned linebackers. So I'm thinking you might look at linebackers first. But what makes you pick somebody over somebody else? Is it strictly linebackers or tackles, or is it something different there that I'm not aware of?
It's strictly tackles and sacks. I rarely draft a DB. If I have a DB on my team, it's because I picked him up for a bye week filler, and there's no one really out there left to pick as far as a linebacker or a end guy. I rarely have a DB on my team simply because you can't count on them for high tackles. Usually a safety might get you 8 tackles. A corner, if he's not being thrown at, if he's a top tier
Right.
corner, he's not getting thrown at. He might only get maybe 2 tackles a game. And
Right.
you can't bank on the points of him getting a pick. And again, a pick in that league is only 3 points to a sack is 6 points. I'm gonna gamble on that sack more than I am a pick. So you rarely see a DB on my team.
Okay. That's a good strategy. And I'm sure that's probably similar. Maybe not. I should assume that similar to that in other IDP leagues also. But I think, well, I guess what's more important? Is the sack more important or is the interception more important? And I know we all get excited about the sacks because you want to see those guys come on in and just crush that QB or something like that. But okay, interesting. So you look at tackles being the main thing for you. So
Correct.
probably a middle linebacker then is probably going to be
definitely. Like I'm a huge fan of Roquan Smith out of Baltimore.
Yep.
He's usually one I want. There's a linebacker in Indy that he's usually up there. Yep, he's usually up there high in tackles. So I'm definitely pegging for one of those two. If I'm lucky enough to get them both, then I know I'm going to have probably somewhere around 20 points just coming out of those two players combined in a game.
Right. Okay. So what about sacks? So, we all, again, it's some of the biggest money being tossed around in the free agency world. And I know right now we're at that point where things are happening quickly with the NFL and players and drafts and all that kind of stuff. So sacks are like that, ooh, that's cool. You get like a cool little dance at the end of it kind of thing, a la Mark Gastineau back in the days. So, I got to pull out Mark Gastineau.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, there you go. Number 99, the original sack master dancer. So sacks, do you not put as much value on sacks? So again, I don't know, you've got your points structure there, but you got sacks are 6 points, correct?
6 points, and then you get that tackle, so you're getting 7 points per sack.
So your sacks are 7 points versus a tackle being 1.
Right.
So why not put some value on that D line?
I do. But again, you're looking at TJ Watt, who's usually, if you go for that first linebacker, that's going to wake the rest of the league up. And Watt may come off the board before it comes back down to you. I prefer to have the linebacker first over the DN because I know I'm getting 10 to 12 points out of that linebacker to where I might only get 7 points out of TJ Watt. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I'm not saying I don't want a DN. I do. I do want Watt. I do want Garrett, but again, I weigh heavy on tackles. So I am looking for that 10 to 12 out of that position every week.
All right. Gotcha. Awesome. All right. We're here chatting with Joe Bliss, regular on the EFF podcast here. We're talking about the IDP leagues. Joe's been playing and has his own league with IDPs for a real long time, and he is better at this than I am. So I want to poke his brain a little bit and get some of the insights and some strategies on his history, I guess, experiences and what he might find in IDPs. And he just told all of us that Roquan Smith is his man. Not that that's a shocker. Anybody who knows football knows that guy is an animal. So
he's a monster. He's a monster.
He is a monster out there. So I want to take a little bit of time here and go through some of the people that we feel maybe the tops, our own opinions. I don't care what source you use. You just got your own in the head, but I want to go through that. And I also want to show you or tell you at least how the top 5 were in our league by those 3 positions going.
Okay.
So you kind of idea there. So the average D lineman in our league in 2024 got 10.3 points. And that's the top 5. The top 5 D linemen averaged 10.3 points. Mm-hmm. The top linebackers, as you mentioned before, gets 12.1. And then the top DB is 9.7. So there's a really good depiction of what you said about not having a DB on your league. Now, those are the top 5. I think it was the top 8 of the top 10 players on defense in our league last year were linebackers. So those differential points between the 10 for linemen and 12 for linebackers and 9 and change for DB get a little bit wider as you can't get those top 5. So to your point, when somebody starts taking defensive players off the board, whether it's you, me, or someone else,
Mm-hmm.
you only have a finite number of people that are going to give you the quality points you're looking for. Otherwise, you're going to be wallowing down in the 6-7 range. And we all of us know, we all have lost games. We've all have won games by a point, 1 point, whatever, decimal point kind of thing, right? So we know that those extra little points are critical. So the top 5, again, D lineman is 10.3, linebackers 12.1, and DBs 9.7 in your league last year. Does those sound like what you were thinking, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, they're right there as far what I was thinking as far as getting at 12 points. But you can look at DBs, and you look at Buda Baker. He's just shy of 100 tackles last year. So
Yep.
you're getting that 8-9 points in the league, but you're not getting that sack chance that you're going to get with a linebacker. You're not getting that forced fumble or that fumble off.
Right.
Yes, he has a chance of getting it back there, but it's more often going to happen up on the line. So you're going to see a D lineman or you're going to see a linebacker that's going to create a fumble more than you're going to see a DB that's going to create a fumble. And that is just going to pick up more points for you.
Right. What about like pick sixes? Now that's going to be
Pick six will
primarily a DB,
Yeah,
right?
so you're going to get 3 points for the pick, and you're going to get 6 points for the touchdown. So that's 9.
Okay. All right. So again, that 9 barely offsets a sack, which is 7, right?
Right.
A sack
Right.
and sack is 7. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So I'm going to give you some names and be honest with me, Joe. These are last year's top 5 by position on defense. Tell me if you would have thought any of them would have been in the top 5 as we go through here. All right. The top 5 D linemen in your league last year. Andrew Van Ginkel. Would you have thought
Minnesota.
he would be the top guy? He actually is the top D lineman in your league last year based on points per game average.
And how did he get that? Interceptions,
Yeah,
touchdowns.
he had
He
big
did not
plays.
have he didn't have that many sacks. He had a lot of pick sixes where it was actually getting his scoring up there. So yeah, you're not thinking that out of a lineman by any means that you're going to get all those pick sixes, but
Right.
he played that edge in Minnesota, and his hands are always up in the air.
Yeah.
Hands are always up in the air.
Well, I didn't think he'd be a top 5, but
No, not at all.
The next guy, probably, I do think Trey Hendrickson. There's a lot of talk now about him, but 17.5 sacks last year.
Yeah, for sure.
The guy's a stud.
That guy is a stud, and I'm gonna jump on the homer wagon for you, and we got to find a way to get him in Detroit.
I heard that it's not going to happen though.
Probably not.
The Bengals want and what he wants is just way too much money. So
right.
Oh well, it sounds great having on paper though. It'd be wonderful.
Oh, for sure.
Nick Bonito from Denver.
Yeah,
he was the third.
Yeah. Again, I'm guessing he had a lot of tackles for loss and probably some fumbles. Because I don't picture him getting a lot of sacks. That name just doesn't ring a bell to me at all.
It doesn't. I know we're not in Denver area, so maybe the Denver locals might think so. But, but I would never pick Nick Bonito. In there. The next 2 names we all know: T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett.
Yeah, for sure.
So those guys are perennial. They're going to be there, and they're both going to be going to Canton at some point after their career's over. All right, so let's go ahead and give us your top 5 D linemen. I don't care what order it is, but just give me your top 5, and let's see if I can be close to yours.
My top 5?
Yep.
Currently, right now?
Yeah.
T.J. Watt, Miles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Hutch. Oh crap.
I got 3 of those so far.
Do you?
Yeah, I got Hutch, Garrett, and Watt.
Oh man, I'm lost.
So
The guy out of Seattle, he's a free agent.
well, not Warner. He's Niners.
Oh,
Who's Seattle? Well, I'll
can't
help
think of
you
his
out a
name
little bit
right
here.
now.
I didn't put Hendrickson in there.
No, he's a sack leader.
I know, but I'm not going that way. I'm going
Okay.
Micah Parsons,
Oh yeah.
Will Anderson,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I have an honorable mention only because I like the guy, and I wish he would have been in the Honolulu Gray, Honolulu Silver, excuse me, is Max Crosby. But
Oh,
I
for
have
sure.
Hutchinson,
For sure.
Garrett, Watt, Parsons, and Anderson.
Okay.
So
I like that.
yeah,
I forgot about Crosby, and he's right in our backyard in Eastern Michigan. You know.
yeah. In fact, the Eastern's Field is
Yeah,
named
exactly.
the Max Crosby Field. That's pretty cool. Bring him back home, man.
For sure.
All right. So sliding over to those linebackers that give you about 12 points per game here.
Yeah.
I actually got lucky. I picked up one of these guys, the number 2 highest ranking linebacker, about mid-season in our league, and it helped me propel me to the win. But Zaire Franklin, we already mentioned him over in Indy. But the guy I picked was Caden Ellis out of Atlanta. He was second highest linebacker based on points per game.
Right.
This guy, I mean, he's been playing around a little bit, but Zach Bond,
That guy
not
out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Exactly.
Out of nowhere. Special teams player, I think he was in New Orleans.
He was in New Orleans, yeah.
And then he signed with Philadelphia and just blew up. He just got a massive contract from the Eagles. Wow. I'm thinking 3-year, 50,000, somewhere in there. Not 50,000, but 50 million.
Yeah. No, he deserves it.
Oh, for sure.
So he definitely earned that money. Robert Spillane.
Yes.
Robert Spillane out of New England. So he was the 4th. And then the 5th one is, as you mentioned, your boy, Roquan Smith.
Right.
So any big surprises of those guys there? I guess we already discussed Zach Bond,
I think, is the biggest. I always think Fred Warner out in San Francisco is just a stud. He doesn't get a lot of the tackles, but what he does for that defense is just unreal. I mean, he is a stud.
Yeah.
Bobby Wagner with Washington Commanders. I mean, he's just a name that's always out there every year through and throughout.
Yeah. Back in his days in Seattle.
Correct. Seattle's big time.
Who do you have for your top 5 linebackers out there?
My top 5 is actually going to be Bobby Wagner. I like him a lot. Obviously, I'm going to like Roquan Smith. I like Zaire Franklin. Fred Warner. And, I do have a little bit of love for Patrick Queen. I think he's always around the ball a lot.
Wow. We only have one in common there.
I got an honorable mention of Jermaine Pratt.
Still don't have it.
Wow.
No. I got Foyesade Olukan.
Ooh.
I
Jacksonville.
I had him for a few years, and I've always liked him a lot.
Yeah. So I can't say his name, so that's why I don't bring it up.
I'm not sure I said it properly, but what the hell? Give it an attempt here. I got Roquan Smith. Then I got the guy from the New York Giants, Bobby Okereke. I like saying his name.
Oh, yeah.
Okereke.
Yeah.
TJ Edwards, Chicago. And I don't know why, but Nick Bolton out of
Kansas City.
Yeah.
KC.
So those are my Olukan, Smith, Okereke, Edwards, and Bolton.
I do like Bolton for sure. I like Bolton. I do like him. Definitely.
Well, what's cool then is that you rattled off 6, I rattled off 5. We only had one that was a match. So between two of us, there's 11 or 10 different linebackers
Yeah.
that we
I
both like.
mean, you've got every team in the league is going to have a linebacker that's usually leading them in tackles. They're going to get 100
Right.
plus. So all of us are going to have different lists.
Now, I did not go Homer way. I
It
didn't go
really,
Homer way.
we really don't have a linebacker stud here in Detroit.
Anzalone, I think, will be in top 10 this year.
Oh, we need to re-sign him.
Knock on wood, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think Anzalone will be top 10 this year. I do think he'll be re-signed. I think he'll be on the team.
There's a guy floating around out there right now who's just released from the New York Jets, and C.J. Mosley. That guy's a tackling machine.
Yeah,
That guy's a tackling machine.
that's true. That's true. So, all right, and let's break down quickly. I know you don't have them on your league, but let's go through some of the top 5 D-backs. Again, they're averaging, the top 5 are averaging 9.7 points per game, so about 2.5 points less than the linebackers. And Buda Baker is number 1 last year.
Sure.
Nick Cross over in Indy. So Indy had the second highest DB and the highest scoring linebacker on their defense out there. So Nick Cross, the DB in Indy. Kevin Byard, he's still playing and playing well. He was the 3rd highest scoring DB. Chicago. Derwin James, I think I've had him for the past 4 or 5 years. Seems like he's always on my team out in LA. And then Jeremy Chin was from Las Vegas. Those are the 5 DBs: Baker, Cross, Byard, James, and Chin. So what you got going on with your DBs?
My DBs, I'm going to go Buda Baker, Patrick Surtain II, Marlon Humphrey out of Baltimore. I think he's really good.
Okay.
And I'm going to go Philly, Cooper DeJean. That kid raised a lot of eyebrows.
He did.
A lot of eyebrows. And I'm going to wrap it up with
come on, go the homeboy.
Actually, I'm going big play Slay is where I'm going to go. He's always one of my favorites.
Okay. Again, we didn't match a whole lot there. I have Kyle Hamilton. So I went the other guy in Baltimore. He gets a few sacks also. So
For
I have
sure.
Kyle Hamilton, Derwin James. I guess because I have him, I just have his name out there. Antoine Winfield, Jesse Bates, and I am going with Brian Branch.
Oh,
I am going Brian Branch. Not just being a homer. I think the guy just everything. He does it all.
He is. But again, there's so many good players out there. Everybody's list is going to vary, Right. I'm going with people that shut down corners. You're not getting nothing on Surtain. He's the defensive player of the year. I mean, he's just a shutdown corner. Right. His stats are low because no one wants to throw on him.
Sure. Right. Yeah. To your point, and I guess I thought about that on a DB who's good on the field is not going to be necessarily good on fantasy football.
So you mentioned the Colts had 2 of the highest players.
Yeah.
On the defense side of the ball, and that's because their defense is trash. They're out there for so long.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they're going to rack up the stats.
Right.
Because they're garbage.
Yeah, it's similar to a quarterback who plays on a bad team. They're going to be behind all the time. Just keep passing the ball to the end to get their stat.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So, give me before I say goodbye here, Joe. Give me some of the last little thoughts that you might have regarding IDPs and strategies or experiences or why you do it, why you did it, and that kind of stuff.
I think it just brings a little bit of a different excitement to the game. It keeps you in tune to the whole game, not just the offensive side of the ball. Right. Again, you get that sack and you're like, man, that's my guy. I just got 7 points. And again, I'm also looking at the gambling side of it. There's a lot of bets to be laid out on that side of the ball that people always forget about.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I look at the whole game. I look at it different than a lot of other people do. Not only for fantasy football, but also for the gambling side of it. Right. So yeah, I mean, I'm in tune to the whole game, all the way down to the kicker side of it. I just think defensive wins championships.
Well,
Sure.
and you've been doing this for a real long time, and you're regularly in the finals. So I gotta give you props for that. So, all right. So we chatted with Joe Bliss, the executives from the EFF, and we're breaking down some of the IDP leagues that are out there, and his experience and our experiences here, and talking about the tackles versus sacks versus interceptions you're going to find when you get into an IDP. And it appears to us that linebackers are the place to go, somewhere in the 3rd to 6th round. I mean, we all know every draft is different, but maybe you're out there grabbing one of those top 2 or 3 linebackers and D linemen, maybe worth over a 3rd or 4th string running back or receiver out there.
Sure.
So,
For sure.
All right. So, well, Joe, we're going to say goodbye here. So we're going to go ahead and get the outro going. Right above my head, you see a bunch of logos and things to click, subscribe, and ring that bell. And we want everybody to check us out on all of the podcasts, whether it's Apple, it's Amazon, it's Spotify, it's Podbean, it's YouTube. Come on out, check us all out there on Extreme FF Official Podcast. My name is Todd Bailey. That guy is Joe Bliss. Again, thanks, Joe, for coming on out. And with all of that being said, I want to thank our sponsors, 123go.io and Tabby Entertainment. And as I always say, when life gives you a chance, make it happen. See ya. Peace.